What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Machine Factory, Medicare Machine Factory Top 1% podcast. I'm Joshua Youngs. This is Tyler. We are here to chat it up. How's it going?
Oh, going this morning. Yourself, brother?
It is also going. I'm going to make sure everybody knows about this. Oops, wrong button. So, while we're waiting for me to get all this, why don't you tell those who don't know who you are, how long you've been in the business, etc. What kind of stuff people can expect from Tyler Tingu.
I've been in the business for 11 years now. Started out in a little bit different circumstance, running a LOA program and learning the business, learning the ropes. Allowed me to be developed and hone my skills, so to speak, underneath some fantastic training and management and system development. With that being said, that's also given me the opportunity to learn how to help others to build and develop and hone their skill sets, much like thou hast taught me the way.
Yeah. What do you think the way is? How would you describe the way?
Number one, putting in the work. Not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to step out of your comfort zone, try something new. And over the last 11 years, I've guinea pigged a lot for you, been able to hone that myself, make it my own comfort of the system, so to speak.
So we got our first comment. Some guy that works with a company that wants to sell us calls for Medicare. Yeah. If you're just watching to pitch us crap, you can go F yourself, because that's not what we're about. Find a real way to market. That's kind of what we're doing. We don't like the fake stuff around here. We like real authenticity. We like real marketing. And so we don't need leads, buddy. Whoever you're peddling leads and calls to, we don't need leads. You've got to find someone else who works the grind that you can rob rather than us. So
definitely barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, it makes me laugh when people attempt to force sales. I mean, that's almost a perfect topic to go into, because I see a lot of agents make that mistake, trying to force an initiative, force a spot on somebody, force anything at all. That just creates a situation of friction. And with friction, you can have heat. With heat, you can have fire. And fire usually causes damage unless it's controlled. And is there such a thing as controlled fire? I don't know. We this podcast, we're going to really be about having conversations, having guests that provide value to the industry to help the progression that has started but has stopped at times towards what would be more collaborative industry versus a cutthroat business, which is oftentimes what ends up being, right? Mic on. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, Tyler, from your perspective, what do you think the number one factor that you have internally that brought you to the point where you're at now in the business?
Internally?
What's up, D from New York?
What's that?
Oh, somebody said, hey, tuning in from New York. And so I said, hey, what's up, D from New York?
What up? Internally, I think just a drive for success or to overcome failure, I think is the biggest internal thing for me. Being able to go through processes and, overcome obstacles. Like I love challenges. I love new adventures. I hate getting bored with something. And so, I mean, growing up, a lot of times hearing that repetitiveness, oh, you'll be lucky to see 16, you'll be lucky to see 18, that kind of stuff. It was one of those, oh yeah, hold my beer moments, right? Like I want to prove everybody wrong, prove what can be done, but I want to do things the right way and use that for good, so to speak, not become a super villain with it.
Yeah, no, and most skills have that ability, have that crossover component to them where you can use them for good or for quote unquote evil, so to speak, to get better good for the community or to better good for yourself, so to speak. So yeah, I agree. You have a very hard internal drive, persistency and consistency, almost a psychotic obsessiveness, right? I think that's part of the ingredients to being super successful is you got to be right on that edge of almost crazy in other people's eyes, doing things that other people don't want to do, finding ways to um, stay ahead of the competition, right? Because what most people make the mistake of doing, in my opinion, is following too much. It's okay to follow to a certain extent, and you want to follow a path, follow a system, follow a program, but if you're not consistently, constantly planning to evolve, right? There's timing on that, and so you shouldn't just take a new system and try to make it your own right away. You should follow the system, learn the system first, so you can identify where you believe the weaknesses are in real time with real evidence, right? What do you think? What do you think is unique about the way that you do things versus the way that you see a lot of other agents do things?
And the industry in general, I think that, I mean, perfect for the comment that we got earlier, people trying to force stuff, trying to find a shortcut. I mean, there really isn't a shortcut. If there was, it would just be the way, right? So, being able to go down that path and hack out the weeds that are on the edges and clean it up, right? Like if someone goes through with one vehicle and sets that path, it's great to follow. But if you're coming through in a different vehicle that's, doesn't have as good of a suspension or
Well, give it an analogy into the industry. What do you mean by vehicle?
so the training platform, I mean, for where I started and what I had coming into it versus where the system is now that we utilize to go through that. I mean, that vehicle that's going to propel you forward and the support and the systems that you're going to get. I mean, all of those have been constantly evolving, changing, modifying for the better. So if like with Medicare as an example, I would have never dreamed of cross-selling hospital indemnity, final expense, other items like that when I first started. So as the systems developed, as my vehicle's been able to carry more, and I went from a little smart car Prius, whatever, to a big truck where I've got more stuff that I'm hauling with me to be able to provide that service and that care and support for my clients on a more whole coverage approach. I've needed a bigger path. I've needed wider areas. So I've had to hack out those hedges on the side, widen the road up a little bit, and, kind of deviate around some of those hairpin turns that I might have been able to make in the smaller car that eventually has provided a much smoother, direct path to be able to go through that area and provide a better service and a cleaner path to be able to be followed. And doing that was following a path that got laid out by me, specifically from you in this situation.
Well, the path is always made by ourselves, right? The plan, the map, the course is what you want to carefully plan and follow. But what I find a lot of people do and make, in my opinion, the mistake of doing is over planning, over analyzing, over what should I do rather than what should I change about what I'm doing. And I think that mentality is very different because most people are reactionary where they're trying to figure out what can I change in what I'm doing versus what can I change in how I'm doing it. Right? And so there's a difference. A lot of times you're probably closer than you think. You're closer at being a maestro at going into doctor's offices or going into financial planners or going into food banks than you think. You just haven't figured out how yet. So the concept, doing that is the right concept, but the how part is where most people struggle, and they overanalyze and overcomplicate the how part.
But a lot of times I think there's too much planning that goes into it and not enough action to get data to be able to respond to make the proper tweaks to begin with. I mean, whether
Right.
it's doctor's office, food bank, whatever.
Yes, and in addition to that, we have to all understand that when we're in the beginning of learning a new skill set, a new skill in anything, the beginning stages of that, and for a while, you're not going to be good at it. You're not going to be effective. You're not going to be pro. You're gonna suck at it. You're gonna go through those periods of struggle and should I be doing this? You should doubt yourself. You need to go through that process so that on the other side, you're able to make the modifications necessary in order to evolve. And so that's most people, once they find something that works, will ride the horse, which is smart, but you don't want to ride it till it dies. If possible, you want to try to keep it alive longer and or get more out of it versus just running it to death.
I think that's a perfect analogy. I mean, like you think about it, if you run a horse nonstop, you're going to put that horse into cardiac arrest, and it's gonna kick off well before it. Where if you have 2 or 3 horses with you, you can change which horse you're riding, which horse you're running, which one you're putting that drive into, and give each one a little time to rest, which will prolong the longevity of each one of them.
Correct. And in a lot of ways, the relationships that you create in this business or in any business, in any kind of sales environment, are the key to making everything work. So yeah, I am always interested to hear the different perspectives in the industry on what works, what doesn't work, and it always ends up being a pissing contest more so than it ends up being a collaborative effort for everyone to grow and get better. And so I've always tried to maintain the mentality that I don't have anything to hide. I'd rather the whole world be out there doing things correctly, even if they are duplicating or copying what the efforts that I'm doing or trying to modify or improve. That all that does is create a better situation for the consumer. And if anyone's not in this business to help people, honestly, I want them to be run out of the business. There's enough bad in the world as it stands that we don't need to perpetuate that with opportunities like this, right? So it's such an opportunity to me that we have with this industry, with insurance. Not only that every time we sit down with somebody, do we help them, and on the backside, we help them fix problems, all those other things, but the concept of peace of mind, which is really what insurance is, there's no tangible exchange of goods. It's an emotional process and sale, and finding that common ground and remind for me, what I think the best thing that you can do as an agent is every appointment, every person you sit down with right before or in the middle of it, you have to constantly be reminding you that this is a human being. This is a person. This is someone's mom, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, something. And my duty, the reason that they've been brought to me, is so that I can make their situation better. Not my situation better, not the insurance company's situation better, but this human that's now in front of me. I have an opportunity and a duty, because I have the knowledge and experience and education on what they should or shouldn't do. That's the angle. That if you're looking for how do I build up a business from scratch, focus on your customer. Don't focus on the marketing. Don't focus on this or that. Don't focus on profit. Don't focus on your EBITDA. Don't focus on any of that crap. Focus on the customer. Make everything customer centric. Make the experience unique, And if you're able to do that from day one, and what I mean by you, what I guess, Tyler, to you, when I say the word unique, what does that mean to you?
Making it my own,
Okay.
making it
Yes.
a unique experience for the person I'm working with.
Well,
Whether that,
sorry, I guess you weren't ready. For me, unique is one of. I'm the one of. There are millions and millions, billions of other humans. There's only one me. And so the experience that someone gets by working with me is unique than it is to working with Tyler. Even though we run the same system, we run the same ideas and have the same principles and all of that, the experience is uniquely different. And some of your raving fan customers love you to death because of the experience you provide. And if that human were to be offered my experience, they may or may not feel the same gravitation to it. And so, what I would recommend everyone out there to do is figure out a way to create a system or follow a system that enhances who you are, that enhances what makes you uniquely you. So if you're really good at making people laugh, then you should be building in humor as part of the process and every step of the way. What I mean by that is having funny stickers to stick on things, having funny sayings, having a repertoire of dad jokes at your beckoning call and certain things. And so finding that niche is importantly special. And the reason is there are I'll use my garden up front. So I like gardening. So I have a garden out front of my house. And when I was putting the garden together, I started to plan and process things rather than just throw seeds in the ground. I thought, okay, what kind of garden do I want to have? What I mean by that is, do I want to attract bees? Do I want to attract butterflies? Do I want to attract bugs? But what do I want to attract? Right? Because with flowers, if you didn't, there's a whole reason they just stand there with flamboyance. They're trying to attract what they need, right? And so we've got to, if you remain authentically you and you remain true to who you are and how you do your process, and it's authentically you and you're not faking anyway and you're real the whole time, what ends up happening is you will repel the people that don't like you and that you don't like reciprocally, and you'll start to attract the type of client that, one, likes you, that, two, appreciates what you are and what you do and your uniqueness, and three, wants to help you grow. So when you can line all those things up in the beginning of our business, what we end up doing is we end up trying to attract everything. We want to attract the bees, the moths, the butterflies, we want to attract it all. But over time, what you should find is there should be a type that you prefer. There should be a pocket of personalities that you want to associate with. And the best part of what I do now is the most powerful and empowering thing you can have as a business owner or running your own business is the ability and the strength in your situation that if a client doesn't fit the bill, if they're rude to you beyond the line, if they are mean, if they're condescending, if they try to throw you under the bus, just fire them. And having that power of knowing that, in essence, you need me more than I need you at this point. But you've got to maintain that respect level on everything that you do, because if you don't, then you don't remain authentically you, and then you start attracting people that aren't who you want to attract. Then you have conflict, and it makes you hate your life. I've been down that road myself, and so I've been talking for like 5 minutes straight. I would love to hear your perspective on that topic of what you think about being unique and what kind of client that you are targeting, and if you believe that the way you do things attracts who you like. And so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
yeah, and I think for me it was less planned and more of a natural progression, sorting through a lot of that to hone my garden, because I planted everything I possibly could in the beginning, especially those first 6 months, and it was a terrible idea. And then I ended up having to do a whole bunch of weeding to get out what I didn't want to deal with. So yeah, I mean, being unique, a big part of that to me is being authentic. Go back to what you said, if you're naturally humorous individual, building in jokes, doing those kinds of things, when you're sharing or providing an emotion with someone, and how you're treating them is going to be very unique to you and to that individual and that consumer. So I can tell you wholeheartedly that every one of my clients I want to treat like family. I want them to feel like their family. I want them to know that when I call, I'm going to ask how their kids, their grandkids were, how their vacation went, those kinds of things when I'm speaking with them, checking in and helping service them. And I want them to be able to ask me about my family and, different things that are going on to support and build. And I've had clients that are very transactional. They don't want that personal emotion or relation in there. They just want the knowledge. And I'm not against that, but I like to have that relationship with my clients. And that's where I think one of the places I've focused most on building and attracting clients that I wanted are ones that are going to have that reciprocation. Because at the end of the day, being able to build my business, get referrals, generate that relationship, it's going to be a consistent and persistent connection with those individuals that runs that engine to provide those new situations and opportunities to help and serve others. I mean, if you went to a restaurant and oh yeah, that place was pretty good, but if you go there once a week, once a month, and you're continually going back there, you're a lot more likely to refer someone else when they ask you, hey, where's a good place to eat around here? Oh, go over here. It's the best place. Where you might have had another place that was just as good that you just didn't have that same experience and connection with because the service was a little bit off or the waiter wasn't very friendly. And so I think building in that authentically you connection with the client has been the biggest piece to building up my clients to where I can attract the butterflies that I want and the bees that I want to come in.
Yeah, you only need like 0.00001% of the market to be successful. you don't need millions of people to be successful. You need a core group of fanatics that go around finding people for you, and not like hunting them down. But I some of my clients do that. Some of my clients try to hunt people down to try to find them someone like me, right? Because if you've been burned in anything, you learn to not let that happen again. And that's the whole cycle of learning, right? When we have our child and they're going to touch something hot, there's two ways to do it, right? You can stop them from touching what's hot, and so they never experience the pain of hot, and they never really understand why you're so adamant about them not touching. And if you think about it as a parent, you're more than likely pretty adamant about them not touching something that's hot because you yourself remember the pain of touching something hot. So it's almost better in some respects to let them do it. Right? As crazy as that sounds, you've got to let yourself make those mistakes. And so if you're looking for the perfect path, there is none. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to evolve a process and a system and an experience. But what it really comes down to is, how does your experience work? And I like the restaurant analogy. To me, it's the closest one, because you don't make a restaurant recommendation based on the food. You don't make a restaurant recommendation based on the ambiance. You don't make a recommendation based on the service alone, right? It takes the entire experience to be above board and top notch to a level where, because if you think about it, what is somebody really doing when they make a recommendation or a referral? Are they playing it safe, or are they taking a risk?
Definitely taking a risk because they're putting their own experience.
They run the risk that you don't have the same experience, and if you don't have the same experience, whether you do it like verbally or not, what are you going to do? You're going to blame that person on some level for putting you through a bad experience with high expectations. So I find my most fanatic referral sources and partners are those that I've created a situation where the experience is consistent, it's predictable, it's the same, which is where processes come into play. And so processes protect you from yourself, because if you're like me, you'll go off on a tangent and 2 hours later, you haven't gotten to the point, right? And so I learned quickly how to get myself to shut up. And there's been times, Tyler, where you and I have had conversations where you are by far one of the most gift of gab humans I know. But
Absolutely.
I've watched you and listened to you make calls where you will complete the entire sales process. In essence, you get them convinced, and then you almost feel guilty that it was so easy or whatever that you like unsell it and you take the other position again, and then you go back and forth, sometimes 3 or 4 times, until mentally you feel as though you've adjusted and taken both sides enough to where there's no end in the back end, right? So I'm curious as to, once you were made aware of that process, what steps have you done since then to try to eliminate that? And do you think it has, or do you think you've just embraced it and it's part of what makes you unique?
I've definitely made adjustments to try to correct it. One, just for an optimization, I can be much more efficient and take care of other tasks that might be more pressing than going through there and literally spending 2 or 3 hours on the phone with someone. So some of the things that I've done is a little bit of reading, research, study, philanthropic development. I don't know how you want to say that. Because I think the biggest key to that is, once I was made aware of that, you're absolutely right, where it's almost like I feel guilty that it was too easy to go through that process. And it's like you show up at the fair and you shoot down everything, and it was like you were throwing bowling balls at the cans instead of baseballs, so you're able to knock them down too easy. And I didn't feel like I provided enough value, enough service to the client. And so part of that was also developing systems on the back end where I can utilize those to build in the value, and know that even if I get somebody on the phone in a meeting, in a call, I mean, I've had referrals, I've had leads that I've called where it has been a one call close, and I have written the application for them and done the entire process start to back in less than 20 minutes. And knowing that the value I'm going to bring to them on the back end, to be there to service them, to provide value, to help them down the road, is justifiably enough that I don't have to feel like I didn't spend enough time with them. That's one of the biggest things. Part of it's also that I have embraced the fact that I talk too much, and I make myself verbally aware of that, and I make others that.
I think you need to reword that. And instead of saying talk too much, I think you should say I talk a lot, and that's okay. But there are times when that doesn't help me, but there's also times where that is a great strength for you. And so I encourage you and everyone else, don't make it one or the other. Make it the neutral side where you can go either direction, because I think it is an asset to you also. There's just times where you could save time and efficiency by cutting out some of it. But there's also the back end where, for a lot of the people that you're talking to, that's what they need. They need someone who's going to be there and have long conversations and ask them about their grandkids and do all those little things. Those are the things that create your unique experience. And so, like I said, for me, depending on the time of year, like during AEP, I believe you should modify things and talk less. But the rest of the year, I really believe that you should not try to hinder what you're doing unless it's prohibitive to your growth. What I mean by that is, if all of a sudden now you're talking so much an appointment that you can only do 4 appointments a day because they're taking you an hour and a half to 2 hours each, and you got travel time in between and all that, and you want to see your family and all this, versus being more efficient in the front side of the process and maybe spreading out the conversation to 2 or 3 or 4 points of contact, whether that's a couple of enforced appointments or phone calls or other things. So again, I brought this up because I don't want you or anyone else to take what's uniquely you and turn it into a negative right away, because it's where the process started for us, right? And you modified things thinking, well, crap, I talk too much. I think we missed the end of the sentence is all. I talk too much about stuff that's not getting me towards my destination. So, or I talk too much about versus, because I don't think it's the fact that you talk too much. It might just be the timing of it, where and when, how far, right? Because I believe there's a great time for you where you would be better at building rapport than I would in certain situations, right? And it goes back to my previous point. You attract, Tyler, and the people that want to keep talking to you, right? Because they learn in that first couple of minutes who you are and how you do things. And so people that are attracted to me are probably different personality types than what would be attracted to you. But then there's also crossover too, right? So we have, just understand, there's enough bees out there that you don't have to change the color of your flower to be successful. Let's see. People would say I have the gift of gab, and I would say I talk too much. I like that point of view. I talk a lot, and that's okay. Yeah, it is, D. Because same thing with Tyler. That you can tell if you look at it from the wrong angle, then talking too much is a negative. But if you spin it and you look at the right angle of it for what you're trying to accomplish, it can also be a strength. So just understanding yourself and what can and cannot be a strength and a weakness, in my humble opinion, I think that's one of the key cornerstones that where I really started to have rapid growth, rapid development, is when I really started being honest with myself and who I am. Rather than trying to become what I thought society wanted me to be, rather than becoming what I thought the industry wanted me to be, just being authentically me and being okay with that, and knowing that if I do that long enough with enough authenticity, with enough character, that I will attract the people to me that I should, and I'll repel the ones that don't. And in the situations where it doesn't work, then I can manually adjust those things. Okay, I'll repel this person, I'll attract this person. But so I want to switch gears a little bit for the last half of this. But before I do that, I want to give you an opportunity to add any thoughts that you have to this attraction, authenticity, being yourself type of thing.
Oh, I think part of where I feel like, or I have talked, where I thought I talked too much, is that when I started developing myself and my system, I was a much younger man 11 years ago, much less experienced, and that was kind of the system that I developed. And a lot of times, and maybe negative annotations that were poured into me from outside influences, where you're a young person, seniors aren't going to trust you as much. You've got to prove yourself. And it was almost like I spoke more with knowledge and information to overwhelm people. And I feel like I still have a habit of doing it. It's great that I have that ability to, here, you want all of it. If that's what you want, I can give it to you. But I need to be more in tune with the times where it's prohibitive and I'm overwhelming people to where they're like, my head hurts, just shut up already. And so I think addressing that and adjusting that makes a more unique experience, because it's not that I'm hindering that or talking too much piece with everyone. Like you said, I can talk a lot, and sometimes that's necessary, and that's okay, because it is necessary. I need to rein myself back in. And I think that development over several years has gotten and is continuing to improve. It's an ever developing situation. You always want to get better, even if it's at 0.0001%.
Yeah, the better you get, the harder it is to improve, that's okay. So yeah, let's transition to, what do you think? Because we talked about mindset for the first half. For the second half, let's talk about something practical that the folks at home can apply and use today. So, what do you think is the easiest thing an agent, new, young, old, veteran, could do if they're stuck in a rut, if they're stuck in a plateau, if they're stuck at the beginning, don't know what to do, what is the one thing they could do today that they could get closer to applications in the next couple weeks?
Personally, what I would do,
Yeah.
I'd reach out and ask for help. I mean, get some direction on where I'm at, get an outside perspective of something that maybe is a different viewpoint that I haven't noticed or seen or looked at to get it. But I mean, the first thing to do, regardless of what direction it is take action.
Okay. And taking action could take a lot of forms, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Taking action could be doing some research. Taking action could be asking someone. Taking action could be just taking action. Um, what I find to be most successful for me is to not think about it and just do. So what I mean by that is, uh, if I want to get more applications, I use fishing a lot for this analogy, and in essence, for me, fishing is a lot like business in many ways. And what the analogy I would give is, you're going somewhere maybe for the first time to go fishing, and you've never been there before, and you pull up to the lake, and the parking lot's full. Okay, full. The entire lake, for the most part, all the points, all the rocky edges, all the structure points, all the places where you think fish would be, there's already somebody there fishing. Okay, which is what this business is. If you're new to this business, there's already a whole bunch of people that have already found the quote unquote good fishing spots. They've already set up their spot and they are already fishing there. So, how are you going to innovate? How are you going to be unique? What are you going to do differently? Or what are you going to do the same, right? And that's where the thing comes down to. I agree with you. Want to find people that are already doing it, but in reality, if you don't have a good mentor to come into the business, your chances of success are virtually none. That's why so many fail. Is there's not a lot of good quality leaders who will guide you into this business for the right reasons, with the right mentality, who have the right experience. And so, what I would encourage anyone to do, especially if you're new and you're considering coming into this industry, or you're brand new in this industry, if you haven't done this already, you really need to vet out who it is that you're learning from. Like, don't just assume because they work somewhere or that they're in some position that they have the experience in doing what you're trying to do.
And I think,
go ahead.
Beyond that, it's a lot of people talk about things being duplicatable. And
everything's duplicatable, isn't it?
And so, yeah, for me, that's what I was just going to say is they talk about being duplicatable. What it should be is replicatable. You should be able to replicate what's being done. I mean, I can duplicate myself, that's me, and here's another me, and here's another me, where Joshua can duplicate Joshua, but Tyler can replicate Joshua. Mm-hmm. And someone on the team can replicate Tyler, and someone else can replicate them. And it needs to be a continual process. I mean, a legacy format, in my opinion, for that development. You can't just duplicate things. It's easy for one person to duplicate themselves in their own efforts. It's another thing for someone else to be able to replicate it and have success.
Replication, duplication, both are important. But for me, that's the start. And then the real magic happens when you're able to adapt and evolve yourself and what you're doing to the levels of success. An example I would give in fishing is I show up and I see everybody's catching fish, but they're all using worms. So you have a choice. Do I use worms? Do I use something else? Okay. Now there's a risk of trying something else. It could fail, but it could also be something new and fresh that the fish was waiting for. They haven't seen it, so it's easier to catch the fish now because I'm using a unique lure, a unique presentation, right? And so understand that what catches fish today might not catch fish tomorrow. And there might be cycles, and you might have to have multiple methodologies of how you're going to catch fish. An example I would give is, let's say worms are the only option. So everybody's fishing with worms, and worms are the only option. So now how do I make my worm more attractive than the next person's worm? Well, there's other things you could do. You could get one. There's a syringe that you could fill your worm with air and make your worm float in the water. There are things that you could do with food coloring, other things that you could inject and turn your worm a certain color. I've seen some people take bioluminescence fluid and pump that into the worm where their worm glows. Okay, so there are ways that you can take what someone else is already doing, think about it, take some action, make some adaptations on the fly. Okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And this is where a system and process really, really pays off. Because I don't like systems and processes only because I don't like putting them together. And so I told myself for a long time, I don't like systems and processes. But in reality, I love systems and processes because that's really the only way you can make small micro adjustments and then figure out, did it work or not? So if you're doing everything else the same, but you change one step in the process, over time, you can start to figure out what effect that one step in the process has. But don't just do something once. You need a larger sample size before you can use data to your power. So what I mean by that is you need to have consistency and persistency in a direction. Once you've decided where I'm going, go that direction for a while until you have enough data to reevaluate, am I going in the right direction? Do I need to make any adjustments? So that on the fly, you're able to be adaptable, and doing so, you'll find more success than if you just try to do things the same every single day because that's the way you've always done them. And go ahead.
I'll just say, I think with having a mentor and someone else to help you with that, with their systems that they've gone through, they may be able to help guide you in that when you see everyone else doing that. Like, hey, if you're going to do this bioluminescence trick, don't try it over here off this rocky point where it's nice and sunny. It's going to be much more efficient if you come over here to this shady log and try it in here where it's going to have more impact. And they can help tweak some of those systems and processes where they can give you that insight, and you can still try it off the rocky point and maybe it works, but they can give you some of that insight to say where it is and some of that experience, right? If I show up and go fishing compared to if you show up and go fishing, you fished way more than I have, even though I love fishing as well. I'm going to trust that you've already gone through some of these sample processes to get some of that data, and I'm going to utilize and piggyback off of your data so I don't have to go as far down a road to determine if that data is going to be effective and efficient for me. If I start out and I get halfway down the road and it's the same thing you told me it was, I can make that adjustment a lot quicker than if I was trying to get all that data and collect it myself for the first time.
I agree. Finding your groove requires you to have a mentor, but let's break that down though. What's a mentor? Right, for me, a good mentor has to have some kind of vested interest. It doesn't have to be financial. They got to have some kind of vested interest in you and your success. So just like hunting down a successful person and saying, "Will you be my mentor?" That's not what you need to find. You need to find someone who buys into you and your ability and your potential and is willing to invest the time, energy, emotion, care, love, all those things that go into that process. So like for you, your answer is easy. You have me. You've known me since you were 4. But for the average human, how would you recommend they find a good mentor?
I think a lot of people are going to be attracted to individuals like themselves. So searching out, vetting, vesting where someone is, and starting in a pool that's someone that's like you, where your values, ethics, morals line up with that individual. Someone, you said having a vested interest, like, and it not being financial. There are some people where that financial investment is exactly who they are, and that's the mentor that they're going to want to go after. Where for me, my mentor was someone I care deeply about and who cares deeply about me, that I want to share the joys and the emotional ups and downs with, pick them up, have them pick me up, celebrate together, all those things. And so I think with where, searching that out and seeking that, that's where I've seen most agents have more success, is that person where they have that similar connection. Because if someone's financially motivated and the financial investment into that individual from their mentor is there, they're going to be driving for finances anyway, which thus satisfies the relationship. Where if you're working with someone on an emotional level, being able to help pick them up and feel good when you're able to bring them up or celebrate with them when they have success is what's going to build and strengthen that relationship with the mentor to help drive them to where you're at. Mm-hmm. And it's what's going to fuel that relational fire, whether it's financial, emotional, mental, similar connections, however it is.
Yeah. The mentor-mentee relationship is, to me, a very, very unique concept in the world, where in reality, in my opinion, you're better off having a mentor that has some financial skin in the game. That, and what I mean by that is, your upline, quote unquote, in our industry, upline. I don't like that word. The person who's supposed to teach you how to do this, the entity that's supposed to teach you how to do this. Be brave and understand that there are a million of these things, a million different agencies and uplines of all different sizes and shapes and colors and other things. And where you're at in your development stage would probably be different as far as the needs you have in a mentor. So I would encourage you to have an open mind and understand in this process that you're probably going to need more than one. Most people are going to need more than one, because the mentor A that gets you from point 0 to point 50 is going to have different skills and supports and things that you need than the person that's going to get you from 50 to 75, and from 75 to 100 you're going to need probably a complete different skill sets and support and other things. And so over time, in some situations, your mentor, your support system will adapt with you and ahead of you, and you won't need to make modifications because you're both evolving and adapting. But what if you're in a situation where you're on a process of growth and evolution and getting better and all this, but your support is not? Eventually you will what? Outgrow the people, right? And so that's okay. Understand, if that happens, it's a normal part of the process, and that's okay. That there's nothing personal for either side. You are okay with if you, and I'll use a potted plant. When you do a seedling, all you need is like a little tiny coffee can size thing, and then when it gets to 12 inches, you need to put it into a bigger pot. Otherwise, what happens, Tyler?
It's stifled.
It never grows past that limit. It now has a limitation of its environment. And so if you have found that you've plateaued for a long time and maybe you've made adjustments, you've done other things to grow, but you still aren't growing, you might consider that maybe the environment that you've put roots into has a limiting factor to it, and you might need to go to a larger plot of dirt so that you can spread wider roots. And if your current situation has that, and you can just plug and play, then do it. But don't be afraid to make changes that are best for you, even when it hurts. And so I've gone through this scenario, I don't know how many times in my head, Tyler. You have no idea probably. But I've played the scenario in my head probably a million times, where you come to me and tell me that I no longer provide the environment that you need to get to the next level. And so part of the reason, in my opinion, we haven't hit that point together is because I'm constantly thinking about that. And I'm constantly trying to make sure that I stay ahead of the curve to make sure that when you're growing, you don't run into the ceiling I do. And I think
Well,
that's what a really good leader does.
no, no, you do. You absolutely do a fantastic job of that. And, and the reciprocation, perpetuation of that cycle there is that I see you pulling further ahead and I'm like, oh crap, now I'm further behind. It's making me want to do more to try to catch up. And then you see me trying to get closer and catching up, which perpetuates you to want to keep advancing and growing. And it's one of those things where a very good cycle of that to do that, because I see you constantly growing and developing, and it makes me realize some of the things that I haven't accomplished yet, or I haven't refined, tuned in, weeded out of my garden, however you want to put it. And I realize those things and start trying to make the adjustments and picking it up and developing myself more because I see that advancement.
Well, that's because you and I have a good relationship to the point where we both are trying to make each other better. But this is also like proving the point we had earlier that this is the way I do things. As long as I stay authentic to it, are going to attract the right people, aka you. You and I have that commonality, and I think the rest of our team. We have a small team, but every single one of them, I feel really good about being part of the culture, and they're in the same mentality and going the same directions, right? And so we all fit each other, and that's okay. You got to find your tribe. You got to find your posse. You got to find that is, and it's okay to have that change over time. And just understand, every time that happens, every time you have growth, it's a painful process. It's a painful process. There is no growth without pain. And so you have to learn to embrace the pain and learn to use the pain, because pain is by far the most great motivator human beings have. The fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of pain motivates us to do more or less than anything else in this world. And so you have to understand that, and you have to understand how to leverage pain in the right ways to motivate yourself properly, because pain is one of those double-edged swords that, like for me, I can easily be triggered. I know this about myself. There's certain topics, certain things. I have such a high pride in what I do, and I'm such a perfectionist dialed in that it's getting better and better the older I get. But 20 years ago, like I would be willing to fight someone over anything that had to do with insulting my pride or my other stuff. Now I'm able to kind of laugh it off. It doesn't mean it doesn't bother me still. It doesn't mean I don't still have that trigger point. But what it is when you remain in control of all the variables of the emotion of the situation, then the other people that are trying to use those strings learn that when they pull the string, your arm doesn't move anymore. And if that happens long enough with consistency and persistency, eventually they stop trying to control you. And then so that if you're stuck somewhere, if you feel like whatever it is, if you're in a friendship, a marriage, any other kind of relationship, a business relationship, anything like that, and you feel it's plateaued, you feel it's going nowhere, you feel like you don't have the right things, do something about it. Have the conversation. Does it suck? Yeah. Having rough, blunt conversations suck. And I'm a non-confrontational person by nature. And so it really sucks for me. However, what I've learned is when I find something I hate or I'm fearful of, and I just go right at it, and I don't remember who I was watching last night, late night, but so I would love to give credit where credit's due, but I can't remember. So I apologize, whoever the hell did this. But I heard have you heard the analogy of the buffalo and the cows?
With the storm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't heard this, I hadn't heard it this way before, but cows and buffaloes both have some way of they sense storms coming. Okay. Now cows, when they sense a storm coming, run away from the storm. Buffaloes, when they sense the storm coming, turn towards the storm and charge at it. Now, both of them are going to go through the storm. However, unless you can run absorbently faster than the storm is moving, what happens when you run away from the storm?
You're stuck in it longer.
You just stay in the storm longer because now the storm is literally chasing you and staying on top of you. Trying to run away from the problem, the storm will chase you. It will last longer versus taking the buffalo route, turning towards the storm. Now, does it suck when you run right at the storm? Yeah, it's scary. It sucks. It's rainy. However, what you'll find is your momentum going at the storm and the storm's momentum coming over you makes the process of going through the storm a million times faster, a million times less painful. And so I encourage you, this is the core foundation that I never had a concept to put behind before of fire, ready, aim. And what I mean by it's fire, ready, aim doesn't mean that you don't plan things. What it means is instead of ready being the first step and then aim and then fire, have the action be the first step. Then you can ready aim based off of the information from the first shot. So if you're trying to get into a doctor's office to create referral partnerships, go into the first one and fire. Give them your 30-second pitch. Then it works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, go back to your car, sit down, and now do the ready aim part. Okay, what went wrong? What could I change? What could I word differently? What am I going to try different on the next one? And so when you have that process now you can start changing one variable at a time. And when you're able to change one variable at a time, you can now see the cause and effect of that one variable. When you know the cause and effect of the one variable over time, you start to figure out what's important and what's not. And when you can figure out what's important and what's not, you can cut out all the wasted time in your efficiencies. And when you cut all the wasted time in your efficiencies, all of a sudden now you can help 5 or 6 more times as many people as you could have if you were just wasting time. So we're almost out of time. We're just getting into it. We need to do like a 2-hour session because it takes us apparently 45 minutes to get warmed up. But that being said, hopefully today brought you value. We're going to bring a ton of value on a ton of different topics once a week, every Wednesday morning. Put on your calendar now. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss them. But Tyler, I guess if you have one piece of advice for an agent out there who it's February 8th. How could an agent on February 8th do what's one good thing they could do today to get themselves in a position where they can help 5 extra people between now and the end of March than they would have?
Best thing that I could suggest is utilize the holiday that's coming up. So you got Valentine's Day coming up. So you have the opportunity to take in, whether it's taking goodie bags to a senior center, going into doctor's office, anything like that, bring in just a box full of heart-shaped donuts, introduce yourself, taking that action. And holidays are a great way to break into any new environment because it gives you a reason to come in. And as long as, again, going back to being genuine and authentic, you're doing it for the right reason and how you're doing it, making it you with your own flash, your own flair that's coming out of it. I'm not the Ric Flair woo guy to walk in the door. That's not me. That's you more than I am when you show up because you had to pump yourself up to go through the door. Where I just walk in, hey, more like, the talk show host because I'm just comfortable with doing that. So as long as it's authentic, a holiday right now, I would utilize Valentine's Day to get into a new doctor's office, dentist office, whatever it is, a food pantry or senior housing, whatever. Or just to touch base with your clients, send out an email or a postcard or something to your clients. Happy Valentine's Day. Wishing you love.
Send out a Valentine. You said goodie bag, but in reality, you should be handing out Valentines right now, all over the place. And that should be your reason to get into the doctor's office. That should be your reason to get into the food bank. That should be your reason to get into the financial planner. Is you're just dropping by to give and spread the love of Valentines. Okay, you're giving something of value without an expectation of value in return. And so, again, this first visit, you're just about spreading joy and cheer for Valentine's Day. That's this week. Go around, hand out Valentines. They're very inexpensive, but here's the other factor. One of the reasons why I send out a birthday card to every single client every single year is there are a bunch of them that all of their friends, all of their family have all passed away, and they're the only one left. And when you're the only one left on earth, I hate to break it to you, but nobody's mailing you cards. You're not getting Valentines. You're not getting birthdays. And so if you can be the one to cross that and give them that feeling again of what it's like to be cared about by another human being, you go back again next week, and next week you bring cookies or something else. Have something each time of value that you're giving with no expectation of anything in return. After you do that 2 or 3 times, they're going to inevitably at some point, whether it's the first visit, second visit, or third visit, they will ask you, what do you do? And if you're like Tyler and I, there's really no question about what you do because you're wearing all the logos and stuff. And so if you're not wearing logos and stuff, I encourage you, like, are you operating like a business, or are you operating like some kind of weird back closet undercover agent? Like, do people know what you do when you walk in the door, or they go, what is this person? Like, people know exactly who I am when I walk in. And if they don't, they're going to find out very quickly just by reading my shirt, reading my button, reading something. So we're out of time. We just gave you the hot nugget out the gate. Hopefully that's the last thing you remember. Go find some doctor offices, go find some low-income housing, go find a financial planner, spread some Valentines out there, and join us next week, and we'll give you what to do next week to take it to the next level. So thank you for tuning in. That's all the time we have today. I am Joshua Youngs, the Medicare Machine. This is Tyler Tingu. We are part of the Medicare Machine Factory, and we are going to make a change in this industry, one podcast at a time, one training at a time, one event at a time. If you haven't already, we've had the ticker the whole time talking about the new boot camp coming up. This is literally worth $50,000 or more if I were to put a price on it. It's 4 days in person, 8 hours a day. You get access to come be part of a live T65 seminar. You get the whole thing of what we're doing, but you got to pay to be in the room if you're not on the team. And we're not recruiting a bunch of people right now. We are recruiting very selectively. We are recruiting new only. And so if you're under another upline, we can help you find a different one, but it's probably not going to be us because we have a very specific mission, which is to help this entire industry. And the only way to get our mission done is we have to take a non-recruiting approach, because otherwise everybody thinks we're going to try to steal their people. We're not here to steal your people. We're here to train your people for you, because unfortunately, most uplines suck at training. Put it right out there. You suck at training, most of you. So we're here to change that. We're here to make this different. Plug in. We'll see you next week.
Much love.